I hope you're having a blessed day in Jesus Christ. I want to draw. I like to draw. Try to draw every day. Um, I used to do a lot of pencil, and I've shifted to doing pen because it's permanent, which makes it a lot of fun. But also, it shows up better. So I gotta obviously have a grid, which I laid out here. One of my suggestions is get a either buy graph paper or buy paper that have like a dot grid. And I actually printed, went and found and did dots and measured them to make sure that they're the same this way as they are this way. That way I'm not going to have a weird distortion. So I was able to measure across from one dot to the next, and it came out to whatever millimeters, and the top to the bottom came out the same, so I knew it was the same. But you can buy it pretty cheaply at most stores. Anyway, getting right to it, you can freehand draw. I did that a lot growing up, exclusively doing that. But now I want to do it like this because it's for me, it's for fun, it's more accurate. It's a lot better than any other method because it doesn't matter which way the face is turning. I can look at each thing. So you can just look at the square, and I'll obviously have included the picture in the drawing with the grid on it. But you could see I could look and say this is half the grid, so I'm going to go slightly over. But one thing is you got to make sure. Okay, I just tested my pen, make sure it's going to write. Anyway, so you got a little spot right here, and then you got one in this area here. So I'm looking at what this hair is doing. It goes up real high, and I will go lightly. Now, if I'm going to draw for more of accuracy, I'll lay everything out in pencil, and then I'll come back later and go back over everything in pen if I want to do it in pen. If I want to do it in pencil, that's a different story. So clearly I'm looking, this is the middle. Where is it in relation to that? So I'm really dividing each one up as I'm looking at it. And that makes it easier as you go along. Like this hair comes up right next to it. Not that high, but it comes up here. Now when you get into stuff like hair, actually look, see this little section of hair, I'm looking where the middle is right here. It's off to the side a little bit from that. You can see it in the picture that it's off to the side. But anyway, doing hair is not it doesn't have to be your focal point on high detail, and you'll kind of figure out how to darken and stuff like this. So I look for certain very obvious points, like where the hair comes down to a section. I see it's higher up than the midline, which is right in this area right here. And so I go up slightly from that, and it's obviously not all the way over, so it's kind of in this area. Now, the nice thing about people is they are, you know, you can tell who it is even if you're not exact, because the nose might be just a hair off, but the nose doesn't look the same size when your face is turned a little bit. So you can understand how from just a slight turn of your face, it distorts the way it would look. If that makes any sense. So you don't have to. If you're off by just a tiny bit, it might still turn out and look good. One thing I've noticed is when you do a grid like this, it really doesn't look wonderful until you start adding color and picture. Look at this, going down to this ear, by the way, and I just kind of jump into it. I can see that this ear crosses right in the middle of the square, so I'll mark that. And the height of the ear is also almost in the middle. It's slightly below, and you get used to seeing where that is. So that's why I know the ear is going to be kind of right here, and then of course this hair is on this side of this triangle. So I'm just basically, the thing about drawing is it's really just how good can you copy a picture. That's all it is. Going back to the ear, what I see is, where do I put this line? Well, this part from here to the cheek is halfway between. So that I can see by the picture that that's really what it should be. I see it kind of goes back in a little bit, but not all the way up the halfway point. So I'll go like right about here. You can see it's below the ear, and then it kind of comes up and smooths out. And then you've got this hair that comes a little bit and it bumps out a little bit. So that's really kind of what we've got And you know what? If this is a little off and you go back, the hair itself is darker. So it'll absorb that mistake line if you don't like it. And I'm just looking here. Where does it comes here and it peaks? It goes back down a little bit. So right about here, bam. And then we'll go to here, over there. And then of course you have the rest of your ear, and it comes to this little spot. And mine, it looks a little fatter right there. And then you'll have from here down, and it goes to the thinner part out there. So you're just laying down what you're thinking everything is going to be. And then you can step back and take a little look at it and see how close you are. Cuts back in. Now, interesting, this is what I'm always doing. This point to this point, I compare it, and well, what bisects it, where the hair comes back in. So I know that I really want to be in between these points for this. Now it's not based on this, it's based on this. So you're looking around and trying to determine in relation to something else. And like when you look at this hair, that's really just one strand. Right here, it's a little bit darker. Okay. And then you have these hairs that come out. Okay, so let's go back up. Go back to the forehead. I see some of these little hairs in front, right in this area, but the main bulk of the hair is slightly higher. So I want to kind of put that there. And then I'll go over here. That's right here. It whoops up. Now let me look. What I would like to do is I look to say, where am I supposed to be halfway? So I see right this point here, and that's where this hair is starting to curve. So I know right like this, and I want to kind of come down. So I'm just trying to copy what I'm seeing. And I ask myself, how accurate is that? Does that look good? Yeah, it looks pretty good. Other side, there's a few hairs right in this region, but really it's over more. Now I like to go and get the side first. So I will look here. Here's the middle. It's slightly in. So I know I'm going to be right about here. Okay. And I see how this comes down and goes out. Now, the farthest point out, which is right almost at the midline, right here, is slightly below. So it comes slightly below this point here. So right about here in this region. And then you can see it curves and comes back out. So you're really just looking for those shapes. And the nice thing is you can add a little bit. So if you're worried about doing something on the borders with hair that's dark, err on the side of less, because you can always add it. And of course with pencil, when you get it laid out, don't worry about does it look like it. Worry about are the areas of the face in the right spot. That's the bigger goal, because you can obviously erase and stuff like this. But this is good practice. It forces you to really see your errors. And then you know what? I recommend that you try to take your picture to completion, because and really be critical. I mean, I don't need to ask people, oh, how does this look? I used to do that a long time ago, but the fact of the matter is, it was more to have people say, oh, it looks so good. No matter what you do, it's going to be like, that's just kind of most human nature. They're going to give you false compliments and say, oh, it looks great, that's wonderful. It just, people don't like to say, you know what, kind of looks like an alien. Kind of looks like they've had some massive surgery or some damage somewhere. So you need to be honest with yourself and say, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look good. What did I do wrong? And you can see, oh, that eye is not in the right spot. I need to really focus on that. So it's just important to be critical of your work. And then you don't have to, I don't care what people say. And I really kind of don't really read any comments. I had another YouTube page before, and I never read them, because people go, oh, this is fire, blah, blah, blah. Not down with the slang, but, they're telling you things are good. Well, I know something's crap or not good. I already know. I don't need to worry about is somebody tells me if it's bad. So don't worry about that. And if it's going to be a problem and you think you want to put stuff on YouTube and you know you can't be, you can't take the criticism, then just, you know, don't have comments because you don't need it. You don't need to abuse yourself with that. Just draw, share it. You know, that's all I would recommend. Anyway, I'm coming down here and I'm going to hit this point and it's going to curve back in. And it's funny because you look at this, you see this compared to this. It's longer here. So I know that I need to go down a little farther. I'm looking at the midway point. It's actually in here where the neck meets the chin. So I know I'll be coming down here, and right in this region, I've got the neck, and it comes back out. And it looks like it comes out before it even hits the bottom. So you can see how effective this is. Let's get this going right through here. Let's see here. So that's slightly higher right there. And so I'll leave that there. I'm going to go ahead and finish. Actually, let's do this cheek here. You can see the cheek, the bottom of the shading is right in this region, and the top is not halfway. It's right in here. So right through here, and you have this very prominent cheek shadowing. And I'm not worried about shadowing or anything like that. That's I'm not, you know, that's just, it's interesting to know that, okay, there's like kind of top lighting, really front top lighting coming, because you don't have a lot of shadow underneath the nose, but you have it underneath the cheeks going deeper in the face, not just straight down. So you've got to get a front shadowing. And you can see by the lights and the reflection in her eyes in the picture that there's obviously a front facing light. You know, it's not above her, it's there. You're getting one light right there. And a lot of times what they'll also do is they'll backlight to give you lighting on the shoulders. So there might be a little bit of a soft light there to kind of bring that out a little bit. That's because there's not a lot of shadow underneath the chin. Let's see here. Get this ear done. It's slightly below the midline, so I'm coming here. And now what I've found is after you add shadows, it starts to give you depth. Here's something interesting about drawing and depth that I learned. When you're drawing, when I was younger, I used to try to do so much detail all over. And what you find is your picture does not look as good. You really want to have a lot of depth and detail in the front of the face, right in the nose and the eyes and the mouth, but on the sides it gets blurry. And what happens is when we look at something anyway, that's kind of how we see it. It's you see the middle and the peripheral gets blurry, so it really makes it seem more alive and real. Okay, let's get this over here done, and then we'll go to the I'll get the eyes done next. So I got to focus on this here for a second. So it looks like this is kind of close to about a quarter of a way. So right in this region here, and then we'll go up. Now I'm looking, this hair is in line with this up here, this little straggly hair. So we've got a little straggle hair coming here that goes past midline of that little square. So right in through here, and this kind of cuts back. And then we have a little bit of hair here, duck down, and then bring it in. Now it's not a sideburn, but kind of in that region. Cheek comes out and curves back in and meets up with this. So if I'm looking middle, it's kind of right in here, kind of where the ear is. And we have this coming. So this is the dark part, and then you have a little bit of lighter right here. Kind of comes out, comes back in, and meets. Okay. And it kind of looks strange right now because you have more here than here. But It's just no one is symmetrical, so that's kind of why it looks off. And you have to look at your picture and say, oh no, that still looks like it's in the right spot. So that's what I'm looking for. So we want to bring the chin, there's a little bit here and a little more on this side, right? Now I'm not too worried about it because I have black underneath. I can kind of play with it a little bit. So let's bring this down here, and we're starting to do a curve right through here. Okay, to make this curve, and she's got kind of a pointy chin, really sharp feature there. This curves down, and then a little bit of curve at the end. So I'm going to go down, and then it goes straight for a bit, and then curves the last minute. So let's see right there. Okay. So this chin needs to come over more. And once you do shading, you're gonna kind of fix that. Let's go ahead and get this shirt, get it a little more balanced. And you kind of lose the shirt here, so I'm just gonna go down like that. Now she is wearing what looks to be obviously this wrinkle across here. Let me see, 1, 2, 3. So it should go down to about there. So our shadow's going to go here. It's going to kind of cut down. And we got almost like a turtleneck thing going on. It's kind of interesting, actually. So we go here, a little bump, and it goes here. I've got a lot of heres there, here and there. Looking at this, the dark shading is right in the middle. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just looking for where we're meeting. Okay. And now I see it drops down a little bit for this. So it doesn't meet. You can see it's like jet black here, and it's real dark but lighter. And it kind of matches the shape slightly shifted this way. And then we also have all our other little spots here. And of course, this curves right into this intersection. So those are the things I'm looking at. Where do things meet up? What do they do? This one, on this side, this little wrinkle is kind of right in front of the cross there. And it comes down just a little bit below. So I'm looking at the ratio. You see this distance? This is probably twice as much as this. So that's why I know this goes here. Plus, well, it actually looks like it's halfway, which would be right in that region. Because this is, I think, halfway down here. So I lost a little bit of that grid, but it's okay. And you have to find out how big you want it. There's a pros and cons to sizing. I've told other people this. If you draw a small picture and you're off by a little bit, it's really noticeable. Because if my eye is 5 millimeters wide and I'm off by a millimeter, I'm 20% off. Okay. If your eye is this big and you're off by a millimeter, it's not even noticeable. It's like a shadow. So size matters. And one of the hardest things for me is when I go from a large picture and draw it smaller. I don't know why I have a hard time doing that. 1-to-1 is always easier, but I find that when it gets too big, I have to make sure I'm really focused on drawing larger. And I'll show you a picture that I'm drawing larger later down the road. Okay, when I finish it, but it is hard, really hard to draw significantly larger. And I also make the mistake of taking an old picture that's not very much good detail, because I really like detail, but this is just for fun, just like practice and stuff like that. See how far away I am from this shadow? So I know that's where it's going to be. It comes down there. These are all just parts of the mouth there. What I find is that the sizing changes are just when they're so drastic, it's hard. It's hard to make that kind of step. So now let's look at the eye. Looking at this one, a few things I see is I'm close to this line, so it looks like the corner of this eyebrow crosses right here, goes slightly up above, and then it drops down. Now where does it go to? I'm looking at the middle. It's slightly, here's the middle, it's slightly over this way. So I'm catching the angle, what I think is the angle, and going over. And I'm going to leave that there. And then I want to look at that shadow in the nose, right? It's a space and then a space. Well, let's see if we could find another area that looks a little bit better. The pupil is slightly above, like right in this region. Not on the line, it's slightly above the line. And it looks like this little corner of the pupil is in the middle. So that's what I'm going to deem is where that is. Okay. Now, where do I locate that? That's the next tricky thing. So I think I want to tackle this eyebrow because I know that. I'm looking at it, trying to determine how thick it needs to be. And just by kind of guessing, it looks like this looks like about the right thickness when looking at the picture I'm drawing, okay? So if I'm using that as a guide, that means that the next part's going to be about here. And then, interestingly enough, the eyelid is about the same thickness. Therefore, putting my, this the point where it would meet. So I want to go down, and it comes over a little bit, and then I want to get the other side. Now we're doing a circle. So it looks like this is a little low anyway, now that I'm looking at it. So I'll draw that around. It's very interesting, if you look at a lot of eyes, this is something that's interesting too. You don't see many eyes dropping below on the bottom. Usually they're being touched by the eyelid. So this picture is probably, somehow they got the angle so that they can take the picture like that. Now, what you can see here is this, and I don't remember the name of it. You know what? That needs to come lower. It really does. So I'm going to bring that down lower because what I'm doing is I'm looking at this spot right here. Okay? So this will curve, and I'm trying to keep that angle. And I want to I'm going to cut across the eye like that. And we're not going to make it all the way over there. It'll be slightly in right about here. You're just kind of looking and figuring out your locations. Now it's going to split this pupil in half right there. And we're going to go on the other side here and do the same. Bring it down. Okay. This is turning into a longer video, but that's okay. Right up there and back down. It's really kind of important to get a good setup of your drawing. Okay. So I think I'll go with that. Bring that around and back down, and it kind of bumps away. Then you have your eyelid right like that. And then it reduces its curve, looking at the picture. And it goes all the way to here. And then, of course, you have your eye lashes and your loop down there. And then this will go slightly below. Okay. Now, if I had a pencil, I probably would already be making some erase marks and stuff like that. But I don't. So one of the problems with drawing with a grid is you now can't really, see some areas that are being blocked by the line. And that's where you take your other picture later and you clean that up. So also what you want to do is, you see that little white spot? I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle so you know where that's going to be, okay? And then you can draw your pupil around that. And when you're doing it, I advise you to darken the pupil, not try to do a relieve and show it, as opposed to the other way around. That way it'll come out, and you don't want to end up making it smaller than it needs to be. So we've got this little line here. We drop this down a little bit, and it comes down and back over. So I'm just looking. It's almost a ratio thing at this point. Now it looks strange, but you can kind of look where it is. I have room to do some shading right here off of that. It comes up here. The eyebrow doesn't look crazy but big. Once you start darkening this, you'll start to see it and it'll start to look better. So I'm going to take this one a little farther when I'm done, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just kind of focus and do some drawing here. Nostril slightly higher on this side. Also, I'm looking to see where it drops down in relation to this. It's slightly in from this line. It's more like here, so the nostril's going to go right in here. Those are the things I'm looking at. It's going to be higher than this point. Okay, so it comes up like that, and then you have this little tiny nostril there coming up, curving like that. So that's kind of where we figure that out. This nostril, the hole, is a little lower than this side. So you want to make sure you capture that. Ooh, that doesn't curve right. I can already see it. See, it needs to curve more. So I will do that when I blacken it up. I'll do that. This part of the nostril is a little lower. Okay. And I don't like to do this part until I get the eye laid out. But let's get this. Okay. And we want to get our lip. So looking here, where do we center it? Well, I'm seeing something right in the center. And what is that? That is the bottom part of the lip. Okay. And it's going to go and curve. And then we have the next part of the lip right about this area. It is, I'm looking in between this area. What do we see? It's slightly below the midline. So it would be right about here where the lip is. And then you have your, dead in the center, you have your, that little point on the lip. Okay. So looking at the angle of the lip, two things you want to look at. Angle of the lip and where does the corner hit. The corner hits right along the pupil. Boom, right here. So that's the area I'm going for. Now that's already low, but I want to go over, come up, dip down, and then it kind of does another whoop-de-whoop. Okay? And I can pick that out maybe in shadow, maybe. Or she just developed a beauty mark, one of the two. So I'm not going to worry about this side because I want to get the eye first. But to make this look a little more accurate, slightly off inside is this nose line, and it comes and it kind of cuts in just a little bit. And then you have your eyebrow right there, okay? And all that's going to be shading is going to be cut harder with dark shadows, okay? Let's see. So what are we going to do next? We'll go looking here. So now that I did this, I'm using this as a ratio. I can see on this side, it's farther over, okay? And I also can start using this down below as a guide, but I'll go over. Where's the eyebrow? This one point, the point here, this one's lower. So I need to look at those things. I need to make sure that I know where this is, and I need to be lower than that, okay? So that's kind of working together to find out. The eyebrow is clearly lower, okay? Now, always good to go to the line first. Here's the midline. It's below that. So I'm going to say it's right in here. And with practice, you kind of start to figure this out. So we'll go here. This comes up. And then we've got it going over. Okay. Now, this isn't thick enough. Okay, I can tell by looking at it. So I need to bring that up a little higher. Bring this up as well. And this point comes here. So those are the things you want to look at. Like, does that look right? No. Yes or no? Next point. On the line, looking right here, where is it in compared to this? It's closer to this side down here. So I'm going to go right here. This is going to go up and over. And also, let's find a good point. Okay. So right in the middle, this is the middle. Slightly over is where the inner part of the eye is. And then of course we have a very tiny spot right here. We have a little dark spot right there. I think this needs to go over more, but let's take a look. I want to find this point here. So it's about in this area. Kind of comes up. See, now I'm looking and that eye doesn't look anywhere near as big. So I know this needs to go over some, but this is going to come up. It's below this. Okay. So bring that down like that. It whoops up, and then it kind of comes back down. So actually, it looks like it's going to come out to this outer line here. See how a little bit makes a difference? And then we have our other line right there. Like that. And bring that down. Okay, so we see here your pupil. Now, if you've made a mistake and you can't erase it, try to make this one look also similar. And I say that because that way at least it looks like it's supposed to be like that. Like you drew the eyes too big or something on purpose, as opposed to one is crazy big and the other one's not. But so you really want to try to match the pupils and well, that's the iris, but the eyes themselves. You really want to try to match them because it's the one thing on here that needs to be symmetrical if you're going to mess it up or get it right. And if it's somebody like this that no one knows who this is and you're just drawing it for fun, then draw it and go with it. Okay? So let's get this pupil done. And then we add our circle. And this one is, it's interesting how you can see that the light must be close. Because if it's farther away, the dots in the eye are going to they're going to look more similar because it's farther distance. The farther away something moves from your object or from what you're drawing, it'll look the same. But if it's right on top of you, that means it's clearly slightly to this side because it's more center on this side than this eye. And in order to be more center on that, it has to be closer. So it is pretty close. Maybe it's right on the camera and they're off and the head's tilting or the eyes are looking over to it or something like that. But make no mistake, the photographer probably, he liked this angle, he liked this look better. So in the photography world, they're generally not accidents if it's a professional doing it. There was an intent behind that. Okay, we have this cheek there. We're going to have the other shadow coming here, coming away, down, right through here. So it's starting to look like the subject. Let's give her an ear. Give her an ear to here. So now I'm not really worried about making this look amazing with the ear. I'm not. And frankly, I just enjoy drawing, so we're just drawing. Now I'm looking, it's slightly below the middle of this section of the ear. So it goes right here. Boom. And then lastly, let's get this lip done. Actually, let's do this nose. It's going to be slightly below. So the head is kind of turned just a hair. And you know what? I didn't even notice it at first, but I wanted a straight-on picture to really, really capture the general idea of what we're talking about. No wrinkles, young person, probably early 20s. So where does this lip go? Interestingly enough, the smile, the face is clearly turned a little bit, but slightly. Maybe this person's face is less symmetrical, and with that turn, it keeps things looking a little more symmetrical. But like the mouth looks the same distance between this midline, but you know what? Looking at it, the eyes from the little grid, you can see that why this one fell in the pupil, this one did not. This one actually falls closer to the corner here of this, right here on this eye, the iris So go up, and then it kind of comes back down, weirdly enough. And of course you go from here up to this point, and then we go on this side. Now I've seen some, I could do this with pencil and it would look fine, but this is fun. It's fun doing something because I did pencil all my life. Since so how long now? 30 years, and I'm still doing pencil, but I like doing pen. I like the boldness that you get with it, and also like the micron pens too. Let's get the shadow here, here, underneath the chin. Comes a point like that, point like that. Not a lot through here. So the next step from here would be to go ahead and add your color. Start adding color, and I would suggest erasing as you go on. So I'm thinking about doing this for like another minute to show the drawing from beginning to end. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.